As a heads up, this video will contain rotator cuff size spoilers for Xenoblade Chronicles 1. There will be small references to characters and scenes in the narrative if you wish to avoid them. If you have beaten the game or do not care about spoilers, then welcome. Let's begin. Xenoblade Chronicles is home to some of the most beautiful, breathtaking environments ever put into a video game. The luscious plateaus of Gaur Plains, the mechanical golden climb of Bionis Field, the solemn, ruinous expanse of the Fallen Arm. Each of these offer distinct atmospheres and sights that are wonderfully heightened by their accompanying music. What's even better about these locations is the level of diversity not only among each other, but in said area. The boggy lands of Satoral Marsh in the day might characterize a change in the usual scenery, but don't stand out as anything phenomenal. The nighttime variant, though?
Dear God, it's beautiful.
Or how about the frostbitten peaks of Valak Mountain, which transforms into one of the most stunning environments I've seen in any game. I think for a lot of people, placing high among the list of Xenoblade Chronicles' amazing feats is its ability to not only implement such a wide variety of superb environments, but to have them feel so interconnected in this world thanks to the structure of the Titans. So, the worlds and the locales of the Xenoblade series are a massive selling point, and an aspect that players look forward to with each new installment in the series. But believe it or not, there are some areas in the franchise that never saw the official release. Interestingly enough, there's an unused map that was an early version of the Fallen Arm and known as the Hidden Village at the bottom of the valley, or MA1602 in the game files. However, the missing area I'd like to discuss is likely the most popular and well-known cut content from Xenoblade Chronicles, the Bionis' left shoulder. Due to the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition trailer, you might have recently seen some people freak out about this location in a forum, a plethora of articles headlining it, or a reaction video and wondered why people are flipping out like they've never seen a shoulder before. Well, it's because of its cut nature. The public knowledge of the Bionis Shoulder tracks all the way back to E3 2009, when screenshots were officially revealed alongside the trailer to what was known as Monado, the beginning of the world, the game that would eventually become Xenoblade Chronicles. Let me make this clear. Oh boy, this early trailer and information are a goldmine. Practically a year later on June 10, 2010, Xenoblade Chronicles was released in Japan, yet the Bionis Shoulder was mysteriously absent. It's not uncommon for material and development to get cut from the official release, but it's the short time span, in conjunction with the level of polish from a scrapped area, that gives the impression that it might have been taken out late in development. So, what's the significance of its appearance in the trailer? Well, it serves as a promise to the Xenoblade community that this area will finally be released and fleshed out, as well as a high chance that this definitive edition will contain even more new content, including potential story changes. That's a whole discussion on its own, so for now I want to talk about the overall atmosphere and construction of the Bionis Shoulder, as well as its potential regarding categories like music and story purposes for the definitive edition. So with that, let's unlock the potential behind one of Xenoblade's best kept secrets. I think in order to understand the Bionis Shoulder, it's best to paint the scene. Within the official release of Xenoblade Chronicles, the Bionis Shoulder can only truly be seen through two cutscenes that occur near the later half of the game: Ego's flashback to his conversation with Argalis, and the origin of the Bionis and the Mechanis as told by Alvis. From these brief glimpses, the Bionis Shoulder resembles what looks like a blend of Gaur Plains with its multiple levels and grasslands, along with the stretch of land outside Colony 6 due to the hazardous paths. However, there's a lot more beyond that, which makes this area different enough from its lower level counterparts. Right off the bat, it can be concluded that the Bionis Shoulder is absolutely colossal, and even seems to surpass Gaur Plains and Valak Mountain in size. There are a collection of climbing paths between two main levels that give the shoulder a great sense of scale. Given its placement on the Bionis, the shoulder rests high in the heavens and takes advantage of this position with its precarious walkways and cloud-filled horizon. These features give the shoulder a very lofty, fantastical atmosphere which provides a sense of charm and comfort over some of the previous areas. From the short clip of the shoulder seen in the trailer, we can even see the Hyantia capital Alchemoth in the distance, a detail I adore because it gives the player a taste of what's to come and builds a sense of anticipation as you work your way closer to it. Plus, the floating city is likely the most magical sight on the Bionis thus far, which reinforces that fantastical characteristic of the shoulder. The location feels very reminiscent to Xenoblade Chronicles 2's Lefthurian archipelago for that reason, in addition to the various elements that compose its large space. Spread across the shoulder are bodies of water that split into flowing waterfalls, a mixture of cozy and ancient architecture, and grassy plains that would give the Leg and Gormat a run for their money. Looking at the Bionis Leg reveals what's truthfully a pretty encased area with tall cliffs and walls blocking most of the horizon. The shoulder, on the other hand, parades its view of the world and holds it as a defining trait. Like the rocky covers that line the leg like a thick rib cage, the thin stretches supported by tall columns seen on the shoulder excellently convince the player of the Bionis' scale, but perhaps more horizontally based given their sheer length. Speaking of rib cages, That might be the weirdest transition I've ever done. The original shoulder depicts tall, pointed rocks that can be seen as ribs lining a part of the path. In the Definitive Edition trailer, those same shapes are made thinner and more curved to represent ribs even more. You can tell that these are one and the same given their relative placement to the wooden walkways and farmland. An awfully intriguing spectacle can be found on the opposite side of the shoulder, a particular plane that bears a striking resemblance to the beautiful landscape seen on the title screen with its unmarred sky and long stretch of grass. It's certainly not a 1-to-1 ratio given the lack of mechon remains and planes extending far into the horizon, but it's fun to consider how it could be adapted in the Definitive Edition to resemble that iconic imagery even more. What is remarkably fitting is how well the elements of the title screen come together to define the Bionis Shoulder too. The mechon remains in the Monado balanced with the verdant plains and boundless sky conceive an air of duality consisting of colonization and wilderness. Dirt paths running through small forests, a walled city built against the side of a spire mountain thing with fields of crops surrounding it, and narrow wooden walkways wrapping around rocky columns. Aside from the settlements, those walkways are a highlight for me, and honestly kinda hit my acrophobia a bit. They look incomplete, but remind me of a simplified version of the wooden bridges that are found near Frontier Village, possibly alluding to a considered no-pond presence on the shoulder. From what I could tell in the trailer, which is not much since they're so far away, they do seem to have a rope bridge appearance with hand grips. Furthermore, the layout seems drastically different from the 3 layered wooden rungs, seemingly eliminated in favor of 1 around each column. And the real interesting part is that they now seem to lead to a stone fortress floating on a strange blue island. If this looks familiar, you'd be right, as it shares the same exact appearance as the seal towers found floating in Air of Sea. Given the position of Alchemoth, it could be hypothesized that the shoulder and Air of Sea might be very interconnected, and this specific tower might be a new means of entering the Bionis head, whether that's a teleporter of sorts like those on the hovering reefs, or opening like a seal to gain access. Yet, that seal tower is only a single part of the architecture I previously mentioned, which is another point of interest and what I consider the most intriguing feature of the shoulder. The Bionis Lake has the refugee camp, and eventually Colony 6 becomes a bustling town, but the shoulder offers something original. There are small towns scattered across the plains that seem to be entirely unique, and a behemoth of a tower that pierces the sky. The difficult part about all of this is that the Bionis Shoulder that can be accessed, while surprisingly detailed, lacks any NPCs, enemies, or collectibles aside from unopenable chests. As a result, it's kind of hard to conclusively determine what the designers had intended was the purpose for each of these settlements. If I were to speculate, I'd say they were merely set up for side quests and to help introduce the Hyentia that reside in the upcoming Flying Citadel via discussions with the Bionis Shoulder's residents. Most of these buildings and houses within these clusters have this very misshapen clay form consisting of bright colors and uneven windows and doors that either mean they were constructed with limited resources, in a hurry, or by somebody that might not be the best architect. The doors do look home-sized, which puts them as well as the rest of the shoulder structures in a weird position since the materials used and overall design are very different from those found in Colony 9 or 6. Even the layout of the buildings in the city area is bizarre with metal or stone roofs, buildings with numerous floors, and signs with peculiar writing. However, the city streets are littered with merchant stands and cargo, which is reminiscent of Colony 9 and could posit this ghost town as a safe haven for Hom refugees from the wiped out colonies. Speculation concerning the shoulder's inhabitants is something that I really want to thoroughly dive into in a future video, so I don't want to get too lost in the sauce right now. So what about that weird rocky structure that the tall buildings rest up against in the city? Well, the recent trailer possibly provides us a clue about its position and actual design. We can't see the city from the vantage point Melia and Shulk stand on, but we can see the stretch leading to the cliff the tower is built on, the giant wall that leads into the city, and even a faint glimpse of the farmland if you look close enough. So, it's quite likely that this vantage point is the top of the rocky spire that is made accessible through a secret entrance that lies between the buildings, or a hill to ascend on the back end. It's up in the air, but I think it's awesome that something that seemed off limits now provides what might be the highest viewpoint on the shoulder. Lying on the precarious bluff that falls in the end closer to the Bionis' head is what appears to be the remains of a mysterious tower. In some regards, it even mirrors design choices of the monolith found in the center of the walled city. Unfortunately, it lacks a lot of polish, and doesn't seem to house Rayquaza at its peak, so there's not much to go off of. I think this tower will remain in the final version, simply because the slow camera turn coincidentally starts right after where the tower would be. The seal tower-esque one found on the other side likely isn't its replacement either, due to the position and generally different construction. Nevertheless, if there is any landmark on the shoulder that I believe would hold the most significance for a major quest or story progression, I'd assume this tower would be it. In the data files, only one quest assigned to the Bionis Shoulder has been found that is titled JNL_Quest 0801. and the existence of a single quest makes it quite substantial. We've heard that series of digits before, but make sure to keep them in mind. Perhaps the shoulder was cut in the middle of quest development, but I find it fishy nonetheless. There's something very ominous and sacred about the tower that screams out to me that it'll hold an important item for a late game story mission, or a key to open the path to the suspicious tunnel entrance that might be an answer to a common inquiry. I think one of the biggest questions surrounding the Bionis Shoulder is, when would the player make their way to this location? Examining the game's data actually reveals some clues, as the interval ID for this unused map, as I said before, is MA0801, the same numbering given to the Bionis Shoulder's side quest. Within the game, these IDs are arranged in order of when the player first arrives in the location, and the Shoulders happens to fall between the IDs for Frontier Village and Air of Sea. In the base game, these two locations were connected by a mystical column of water that lies at the top of the village, and is referred to by Melia as a shortcut. If the definitive edition decides to keep this location in the same spot, then it's very likely the Bionis Shoulder might replace this water column as a means of traversal. There's even a couple cave tunnels on the shoulder that are hypothesized to be the connecting routes between these areas. But if the shoulder filled that spot, then would the water column be completely eliminated? Given fast traveling is a mechanic, it very well could be, since it doesn't necessarily hold any purpose. However, I think they could leave it in as an extra means of transportation for the player if they truly wanted to. It probably just wouldn't become available until after you travel through the Bionis Shoulder, if anything. I truly think the inclusion of Alchemoth in the trailer was very intentional, as it shows eagle-eyed players that what they are seeing is the shoulder, and thus, new content is coming, but also because it very well might be a lead-in destination before Air of Sea. Melia's placement also seems to be heavily purposeful, since it makes sense for her role to be rather large on the shoulder. Melia acts as the guide for your party to reach the capital, which would make her knowledgeable of the shoulder's layout. It could even be a spot for further character development for her leading into Alchemoth to provide some insight on her culture. The other possibility is that the original placement of the shoulder in the story is scrapped. If that were to happen, I suppose it could fit as an unlockable area following the events in the Mechonis Core with Ego and Zanza. Once the party finds their way back to the Bionis, the events go by rather quickly, and Shulk is given a Monado replica that is able to use all of the old arts, which can be a bit of a stretch. It could be an interesting addition to the narrative if the party had to make a quick journey to the shoulder to locate parts for the replica. And I think the giant tower would be the focal point, as its design and ancient architecture reminds me of Ase Tower, the location that the Monado was originally sealed. And since Ase Tower was built by the Hyantia ancestors and we've already seen Hyantia architecture on the shoulder, it wouldn't surprise me if this tower was also built by them. Like I said, if there was any location on the Bionis that screams out, hey, this place has mystical components that share some relation to the Monado, I'm thinking it could be that tower. This would be the perfect place for that unused side quest for the shoulder to be used if it doesn't play a role in gaining access to Air of Sea. It could even be a great spot to give Melia some form of development following the transition to the Hyantia and the loss of her brother. Perhaps it could even give more exploration into the topic of Tyrea if they wanted to go that direction. That being said, I'm much more inclined to believe it would be situated between Frontier Village and Air of Sea as originally intended for the sake of pacing and ease of incorporation. But it's fun to consider the possibilities. The series has shocked me multiple times before, and I'd love to see what they come up with. And we can't talk about Xenoblade Chronicles without the music, of course, which brings up what might be my favorite possibility for the Bionis Shoulder. We could be getting 2 new tracks added to the original score. See, every major location, and even some of the smaller ones in Xenoblade Chronicles, are granted both a day and night theme that can either be fairly similar in progression like Gar Plains and the Fallen Arm, or incredibly different like Satoral Marsh and Valak Mountain. If I were the guess, I'd say the Shoulder's themes would fall under the first category, since the latter is usually reserved for drastic changes in the environment. And I don't especially believe that the Shoulder will undergo any shocking transformations under the moonlight. However, I wouldn't mind being wrong on that one. I could very well see the music incorporating a lot of woodwinds to capture the whimsical, lofty nature of this location, just like the Letherian Archipelago, and a more isolated track with a piano for the nighttime variant. If the title screen's playing does exist on the Shoulder, then the piano would also help connect the area and the title screen's themes together, which presents the player with a sense of familiarity. Something that I think would be incredibly cool. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 takes advantage of a leitmotif very often, with the title theme, Where We Used to Be, being remixed into several songs like Tomorrow With You, One Last You, Our Hope, and others. Even Yggdrasil, the World Tree theme, is an area theme that utilizes it in some respects, so it wouldn't be the first time, and I think it would make for a very touching addition that further connects together the world of Xenoblade 1. One last note is that I've seen some thoughts that an unused song titled Hope, which could be officially heard on Xenoblade Chronicles 3D's Jukebox, could be the area theme. While the song is nice, I personally don't feel that it fits the feeling of adventuring through an area, and from what I found was meant to be an event song as denoted by the E in its file name, e33.adx. But if we're gonna go that route, then I believe it's time to make the only right call. Unfinished battle is the Bionis Shoulder theme, let's go! Amazing, incredible. With only a basic shell and the abandoned remnants of primitive architecture, it's kind of hard to say anything definitively. Nice. But what I can say is that what I have seen has me immensely excited. The prospect of exploring a practically legendary and mythical location with answers to long-awaited fan questions and the possibility of changes to the pre-existing blueprint is awesome. I know that we barely know anything about the definitive edition, but to me, it's a promise by Monolith Soft that they know what the fanbase wants and are passionate enough about their games to offer the most complete package possible. Hello there everybody. It has been a hot minute since I've done an analysis or discussion video like that, and I would like to apologize. I posted about it at the beginning of January, and a lot of December was going to be quite busy for me with traveling and just a wedding in the family, so that's why it has taken this long to get this video out, but I really do hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video and wanted to subscribe, then that would be very much appreciated. I'm very passionate about making these videos, and I love just seeing this community grow because it's full of a lot of very kind-hearted people, so we'd love to see more people join us. I'm also planning a handful of videos covering Xenoblade Chronicles leading up to the release of the definitive edition because I am very excited, and apparently it comes out May 29th according to some leaks, which is just... why? That's so crazy. Like, I'm very excited, but the beginning of this year is so packed. Like, oh my lord, calm down. During this video, I actually had alluded to another video talking about the Bionis Shoulder's inhabitants, and that video is completely scripted, so expect that actually relatively soon. I was just very scared that a potential Nintendo Direct would spoil it and I'd have to completely scrap the script, so hopefully that does not happen. Finally, I want to give a big thanks to three people. First off was Solitude Freak and OniLinkPlusLP for helping me out by providing footage of the Bionis Shoulder. I was having a lot of difficulties getting the gecko codes to work with Dolphin, and they came in the clutch and helped me out with that, so I will leave a link to their channel in the description. And the last person is AngelExtreme89 for suggesting the idea of a video covering the Bionis Shoulder that was left on my update video. Thank you, dude, for the idea, the comment, and just really all the support. I appreciate it. That should really take care of everything for now, so thank you guys again for being patient, and until next time.